Hello, and welcome to the Wine Educate podcast, where we explore WSET education, study tips, and practical advice for wine enthusiasts and professionals. I'm your host, Joanne Close. This is episode 60. We are back stateside. Flew in last night from France. Travel's not easy, but it's always well worth it. And now we're back at it because all of our fall classes, I say fall in sort of air quotes because they do start in August. But for us, that's kind of our fall because once Thanksgiving hits, well, everyone's a bit busy, right? So it's a good time to take a look at the old website to see if there is a class on there that is interesting to you. We have a level 2 intensive class coming up, so you can take level 2 over the course of 3 days. And we do have folks come from out of town to take that because, why not? Come to New Orleans, make a little mini vacay out of it. Can be a lot of fun. And because this is episode 60, and every 10 episodes, I do ask that you please share this with a friend. So if you have a wine person in your life who you think would love to know things like lees aging and how to taste acidity in your mouth and all those sorts of things, this is for them. Please just share. I would really appreciate that. All right, for today, for our continuation of our tasting series, this I think is a really important one, especially if you are about to take a level 2 or level 3 class. Lees aging is an important concept to understand, why a winemaker would do it and what is happening, but also in your tasting. So you yourself can recognize when a wine has spent time on the lees. So what am I talking about here? What are the lees? Well, lees are the dead yeast cells. So you have the yeast and it goes in and it eats the sugar and it makes alcohol and CO2. And after it's done, meaning it's eaten all the sugar that was there, or its environment has become toxic such that it can no longer live, right? Because the yeast creates an environment that will eventually kill itself. God, it's pretty deep stuff. Anyway, when it gets to about 12% or higher, the yeast can no longer live. So the yeast dies and it falls to the bottom of the tank or the bottle, wherever it may be. And now we call it lees. These yeast zombies, we now call them lees. After a few months, a process starts to happen where the lees breaks down and it starts to release chemical compounds. And this process is called yeast autolysis. It is the most active over the first 4 to 5 years. After that, the process slows a bit. All wine is going to have lees, right? Because the yeast will die and fall to the bottom of the tank. However, the decision now is made by the winemaker whether or not they want the wine to stay on the lees or not. So what does lees aging do to a wine? It does 3 things, really. The first thing is it adds more texture to the wine, more body. It adds this roundness, this creaminess. And again, sort of like tannin, this is a difficult one for me to try to explain to you, but a great one for you to taste for yourself. So when I give you the tasting exercise, it's going to be really interesting for you to get that sensation yourself of this creaminess, this texture. Lees also adds its own flavor through this autolysis process. It gives you flavors of bread dough, brioche, pastry crust, sometimes a nuttiness. I call this walking into the pastry shop. So if you ever got your favorite pastry shop around the corner and you walk in and you smell all the things, apricot tart, lemon pie, oh my gosh, all those lovely things. And depending on the grape used, the different grapes will give different flavors when they spend time on the yeast. But this is a really interesting one too. So experiment with that. A third thing happens. And this is maybe a little less talked about, but pretty interesting. And that is that lees adds complexity and stability to the wine. When a wine spends time on the lees, it can actually protect it from oxidation and sometimes reduce the need to add SO2, to add sulfur to the wine. It acts as a natural preservative in some way. You can have the lees in the tank or in the barrel or in the bottle. Let's talk about the tank to give you a visual. You've got a stainless steel tank. The wine has finished its fermentation. The lees have fallen to the bottom of the tank. Now, these initial lees are called the gross lees, and these are the larger particles, and the wine is typically removed from this because it's too much. So at this point, you would remove the wine off of these gross lees. And if you've seen a picture, I love to use this slide in class. It looks pretty gross, but that's not what they mean. They mean gross meaning excessive, but it also really does look gross, and you need a shovel to shovel it all out. Someone in the class always asks me, what do they use it for? So it's now my goal. Every time I meet a winemaker, I ask them, what do you do with your gross lees? And I was just in Piedmont, and I asked a winemaker that. And he paused for a second. He said, well, my wife made some bread. So that's a new one. So, I mean, why not? And I said, well, how was it? He said, oh, it was a bit sour. So whatever. Okay. So maybe that's your new sourdough starter. You go get some gross lees from one of the wineries and use that. Then after the gross lees are removed, the wine will drop a little bit more of the sediment, and that's called the fine lees after the racking. So that's what wine is left on if they're leaving it on the lees. Not these gross lees, but the fine lees. Wine can also be in a barrel sitting on the lees as well, and also in the bottle. And we talked about this a bit in episode 48 when we talked about traditional method versus pétillant nature. So if you want a refresher on the lees in the bottle, go back to episode 48. In the barrel, there is a process that's called bâtonnage, quite literally taking a stick and you are stirring up the lees on the bottom of the barrel and therefore getting the lees back in contact with all the wine. The more a winemaker uses the technique of bâtonnage, the more influence the lees is going to have on the wine. So when you read a tasting note and it says something like, spent time on the lees, bâtonnage 3 times a day, every day for 6 months. Ooh, that's quite a lot. So you might expect quite a lot of the lees influence on that wine. So who's using this lees aging technique and why? All right, well, all roads lead back to sparkling wines when we start talking about yeast autolysis. So in the traditional method, wines like Champagne, Cava, all the Cremants, they have minimum requirements for how long a wine has to spend in the bottle on the lees, right? Go back to episode 48 for that. But many still wines also use this technique. It's particularly used quite a bit in Burgundy for the Chardonnays, and it is well known, Muscadet Sur Lie, right? Meaning it's spent time on the lees. And many other wines worldwide will use this Sur Lie technique to get this extra texture and extra flavor. This is primarily used for white wines. Who does not use this lees contact and why? Well, if you have a aromatic grape and you looking for pure fruit character and freshness, you are not going to have the wine spend time on the lees. Examples of this are Sauvignon Blancs from Marlborough, unoaked Pinot Grigio, rosés, right? Most rosés do not spend time on the lees. You want that fresh, pure fruit. So when these wines ferment, of course, the lees fall down to the bottom of the tank, but instead of letting them have contact, the wine is racked off of the lees or sometimes filtered out and is removed to retain this fresh quality. So if you want to practice this at home or with your tasting group, go to your friendly neighborhood bottle shop and get your 2 bottles. Certain styles are known for their purity of fruit and will not have this lees contact. That's a good old Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, or Pinot Grigio, more of a simple style, or get a rosé. Why not? Be fun to do. And then get a wine that has seen lees contact. You don't have to break the bank once more to get a champagne. That's not necessary. I think you should try to get a Muscadet, right, from the Loire Valley. Muscadet. A Muscadet, make sure it says Sur Lie, and you know it has spent time on the lees. But again, ask the question. Say, please recommend a bottle to me that has seen some clear lees aging and that will exhibit those qualities for my learning purposes. This is going to be very helpful for you. Understanding this concept, understanding why some winemakers use it, why others don't, and then tasting it for yourself, getting these concepts down, very helpful. And doing it in a group, always a lot of fun. As always, for this tasting series, you can get the sheet with all the instructions and also some questions for you to mull over. It's all in the newsletter. If you want to be on the newsletter, you go to wineeducate.com, and there is a very green button at the top that says newsletter sign up. Next week will be our last one. It'll be rounded out to 10 of these tasting exercises. And then, because I'm going to be in the thick of it with teaching a level 3 class, I'm going to be discussing some more level 3 topics. Thank you for listening. I do really appreciate you listening. This is a lot of fun, and I love hearing from you all. So if you have a question for me, just reach out. You can always hit respond to the newsletter because it's me. It's me writing the newsletter. Thank you, friend, and until next time, have a good week.